Hi, and welcome to another episode of All Pipes Considered. My name is Sykes Wilford, and I'm here with my good friend Alex Florov. Alex is a famous pipe maker. This year is your 20th anniversary, right,
Yes.
Alex?
Yes.
So I'd like to welcome him to APC for the first time in many years. You did this once before with us, right?
Yeah, about 10, maybe 15 years ago.
It was a long time ago. So we have a lovely selection of your pipes in front of us, and I wanted to talk a little bit with you about your aesthetic influences, especially in your early days. Who were you looking to, and how were you looking out at the pipe world? Because the pipe world was very different in 2004 when you started making pipes.
Yes. And when I start to make pipes, I start on my own. I just was challenged by my father-in-law, so I just made a few pipes out of blue, I'll say. I look at the internet, I find a Pimo company, I use a pipe kit, didn't know how to drill, what to do with that. Then was a big discovery for me is Chicago Pipe Collectors Club. And a lot of wonderful people who were there helped me with the connections. They introduced me to famous pipe makers. My first Chicago show, I met you. And I met a lot of...
2005 we met, or was that 2004?
2005.
2005.
That's my first show, 2005. And for me, that was a blast at the show. I see Danish school as pure as it can be. And when I visit your exhibition, I was absolutely astounded by Asian pipe makers. Because
particularly Japanese at that point.
Particularly Japanese, yes. At that time, there was only Japanese, yes. And the way they style the pipes and incorporate grains into it, for me, it was like blowing my mind. Because before that, I thought pipe can be symmetrical, all geometry checked. And Japanese people can do anything. And keep the good engineering. That's, for me, most important thing. It doesn't matter how pipe look like. If it smoke's not good, it's not a good pipe. So, Tokutomi in particular, he's more liberal guy in Japanese market. He's doing absolutely crazy stuff with the grains.
So Tokutomi was a big major early influence for you.
It was a big major and a still major influence on me. And even now I'd like to go back to 2006, 2007 Toku pipes and get some inspiration. What can I do applying my today's skills and today's style to those shapes? And it's always drive me on. And combination between traditional Danish school and Japanese school, like this pipe, for example, the idea is Lars Iverson side lined pipe, but I add a little bit more air to it because the hole is a part of the design, and keep a little bit more rough plateau on the bottom than most of the people do. That was just fun. It's not, it's not like a regular job. It's fun. I talk to the wood talk back to me. It's a very interesting process. So, but yeah, big Cavalier definitely. That's the Tokutomi inspiration.
Yes,
because he reinvented Cavalier, in my opinion, and he made it.
2004, 2005. He was doing things like not like quite like this, but the earlier versions of that kind of stuff.
Especially the early versions. His so-called katana, it's I think Thomas Luker name. Absolutely gorgeous Cavalier. It's so elegant, so thin, and it still sits. That's like an amazing skills on top of everything else. And of course, I do like a lot of bamboo work. And bamboo work, first name in my mind, it's Shimizu Sato. He was the master of bamboo.
That's amazing, though, Alex.
Yeah, this pipe actually influenced by few guys, plus a little bit of my own thing. I started with the bow, And I searched for that piece for quite a while, actually. Bamboo pipes, they're kind of funny. You either find first a bamboo piece and trying to fit something into it, or it started on the briar side, and then you spend weeks just to find the correct piece of bamboo to fit the particular briar. So it's a little bit more complicated than a normal pipe design. But still, working with natural materials, that's what drives me on. Because people who follow my pipes, they knew I almost don't use metal. I just recently started to use a little bit of titanium because a friend of mine bring me some titanium. Because metal is fun. I'm not saying anything against silver or sometimes gold on the pipe, but it's not kind of what drives me on. I like all natural materials. So bamboo is perfect for that because there is no two pieces of bamboo the same. Same as a block of briar. So every bamboo pipe is unique. Same as a briar pipe is unique too, because sometimes I'm taking a block which have perfect regular grains on all sides. I'm like, oh yes, I'm gonna do some straight grain. I open it up and it turns out as the fugu fish because that's the only way I can use those grains. Because they go wild inside. Like this tailpipe is probably the good example of it. Because from the top, without the tail, it looks like a regular, but tail goes absolutely wild.
Yeah. The angle of the grain is moving a lot as the block
So
shifts.
I need to keep the tail on. Thanks God I didn't cut it on the disc too fast. Because sometimes it's happened too, and then I beat my hands, head, and everything else for not utilizing the whole thing. Because my philosophy is one block, one pipe. If it's a large block, it's going to be a large pipe. But I gotta keep all the natural flow in the pipes, the shape, the grains. If there is some sand pits, I can either get around, change the shape, or I can do a combination finish, blast part of the pipe and leave the other side smooth. But keep it natural in a way like it's grown a tree. I just come to a tree and I pick that pipe like a natural fruit, not something which was forced. So, and
I would like a tree that grows pipes.
you know, I'd like to grow that tree too.
Yeah.
You know, one day maybe I should seed the pipe in the pot and see what's happened. You know, maybe it will grow. But pipes for me it's a way of life. I'm living in that world.
Were you a pipe smoker before you started making pipes?
I was an amateur pipe smoker when I was about 18, 20 after my military service. Then I stopped smoking pipes. When I come to US, it was what I like I cannot afford. And for some reason I did like downhill at that time. And later on, when my father-in-law challenged and the appearance of the internet, there was a little bit more information what kind of pipes available. And for some reason, my attention was switched to Italian pipes because they do pay a lot of attention of grains versus the shape. And slowly, I got into the Danish style, which probably everybody comes through that stage because you cannot pass Danish because pipes and Denmark, it's kind of one thing for me. And then, as I said, I discovered the Tokutomi and Goto pipes. And the funny thing is, the Goto pipes, I didn't understand at first because they more complicated. They look more simple, but they're way more complicated in style. So it took me a while to figure out why he's doing that way. It's less playful, but it's more meaningful, I should say.
When I think back to your very early work, and you can please correct me if you think I'm wrong. I remember seeing even a lot of Danish style then, but there was a more sort of Baroque approach to the aesthetic. There was more detail work. There was more different materials. There was more.
Yes.
Is that? I mean, you're a Russian-American pipe maker. Was there? Was that reaching for other aesthetic things in Russian art, or was that where was that coming from? And I still see it in your pipes a bit, but it's so much more subtle now than it was 20 years ago.
My background is wood carving and antique furniture restoration. Yeah, the Baroque style is probably the right assessment, and that's probably what it's come from. I worked with a lot of furniture which were very intricately carved, and with a lot of different materials. They implement amber, they implement some minerals and metals, and they build a harmony between those materials. And I think that was my initial driver to utilize my wood carving skills, because I'm still using the wood carving chisels on briar, despite it's really hard material, but for me it's just easier that way. And I fell in love with the briar right away as the species. It's absolutely amazing wood. I cannot even compare to anything else I know. And also, yes, I do like to use some exotic woods on my pipes as well to represent the natural beauty of it and to basically accent the major piece of the pipe it is. And there is also a funny thing. When I just start to make pipes, probably a lot of pipe makers come through that stage, colored mouthpieces. Because the Cumberland available in many different colors, there is crazy acrylics and all that stuff. I come through all of that thing, and I came out with black is the best. I very rarely use traditional Cumberland, like downhill style Cumberland, I call it.
Like this one right here?
Yes.
That's beautiful there, though, with the stain color and then the Cumberland stem.
This is a pure Toku influence. I have a similar pipe made by Toku, and it does have a Cumberland on it. So for me, that shape and Cumberland comes together. If grains are good enough and I can do that color, yes, it will come with a Cumberland. If color is different, briar sometimes come in a darker shade as it is, so I cannot make that color on it, then it's black. And I'm just stating that black is the best color. Just like Henry Ford, I will paint it any color as long as it's black. Yeah, so that's what I like. And I do like ivory. Right now it's not very popular because of the whole tassel and bustle. I use a very high quality imitation. Like on this pipe, that's imitation ivory.
Oh.
And I think it's just harmonized the whole thing. It's not just creating the band between, it's harmonizing the major portion and the mouthpiece. For me, pipe is the whole thing, is the image of the pipe. I don't separate stamel, mouthpiece, decorations.
It's a complete composition.
It's a complete composition. So when I drew sketches, it's always the whole thing. It's also give me idea of proportions as well, because it's never like a drawing and I follow like a machinist. It's a guide. It's a very vague guide, like where I can go. And when I sit at the disc, the design changed a lot. The size, the design, I just keep the proportions because that's what sketches are good for. To find the correct proportions for all the elements. Because sometimes if I don't do that, sometimes it goes by inspiration. I find the block, I see the pipe into it, I jump to the disc, I start to make it, and then I end up with the question, what kind of mouthpiece that pipe should have? And sometimes it's taken weeks just to figure that out, so I put it aside. And
I've seen that in your workshop where you've got a bunch of things you haven't quite figured out yet going at the same time.
Well, for example, that stamel was on my workbench for about 3 or 4 months. It was right after the Chicago show.
So you made the bowl and then you found the bamboo later.
Yes.
That's brilliant, because it looks like, I mean, it is a perfect, complete composition. It's like you designed the bowl around the bamboo, but that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that one have, I believe, bogged maple on it as a dots.
Ah, yes.
Yes, it looks almost like a little pearls.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Let me ask you a maybe trick question.
Okay.
Do you see this pipe as being influenced by Tokutomi or influenced by Yorn Mickey? When you're making this pipe, are you thinking Tokutomi or are you thinking Yorn Mickey?
It is a really tricky question.
It's a tricky question.
It is a tricky question. First, you mentioned the name I respect a lot. For some reason, I didn't mention it earlier. The Yorn Mickey designs, if you look deep into it, they started a lot of modern shapes we see around.
And a lot of Tokutomi's
And a lot of Tokutomi's aesthetic is loosely based on the Mickey design.
Yeah.
Not many people, especially the younger pipe makers, they probably don't pay attention to that. But the reversed taper shank, that's a contribution of both, it's Lars and Yorn Mickey.
Mm-hmm. But then this bowl shape is very Yorn Mickey, but this is a bit more melted. This is a bit more like Tokutomi would do.
Yeah, that would be what Toku will do to the Yorn Mickey shape.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's come to fugu fish, it's still huge controversials who were the first to separate the grains.
Oh yeah, that is it's a minefield.
It's absolute minefield. Because
I have no opinion.
Me too. I have friends. I have friends on both sides. Yes. So I wouldn't elaborate on that point. I do have friends on both sides, and I was lucky. I do have a lot of friends who collect Yorn Mickey and old Lars and really old Danish pipes from 60s and 50s. And for me, it's always I'm like digging into the treasure chest and see, oh, that line, I used that line. So that line, that old. So it's always kind of traveling backwards in history.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see...
and it's additive too, so you like peel back a layer of an onion one at a time,
absolutely.
and you work your way back, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a catalog, like an Ewan Reese catalog from the early 70s, and you're like, I didn't realize that happened that early.
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever, and
Pipe Den catalog is the treasure.
Oh yes, the Pipe Dan catalogs are fantastic, and so you're sort of working your way forward through this, and you're saying, well, it's sort of, at no iteration is it fully new, but by the time it's gone through 4 or 5 or 6 layers of that onion, it's very, very different aesthetically.
Absolutely. And also, why I like history of pipes, it shows a development of shape, it shows development of how to incorporate grains in a different way into the different shape, how to use extensions in a different way, different decorations. Connection point, very important as well, because some pipes, they look way better with this traditional push-in connection. Some pipes literally require the military mount because I need to keep the end of the shank open for the smoker. That's what the smoker sees when he smokes. So it's always a balance, very fine balance line between shape engineering, grains, finish, and the mouthpiece, of course. That's one of the most important piece of the pipe because it connects smoker to the pipe. So it's a combination of all the factors, and that's what makes it so interesting. Mm-hmm. There's always a challenge. I like to challenge myself. Like if I drew some crazy sketch, I will kick my butt myself and say, hey, can you do that? So if I find the right block, I usually jumped on it. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes I had a very complicated pipes which I completed in less than, 30, 40 hours. Because I was doing one particular pipe non-stop. Mm-hmm. I was not juggling as I usually do. Because I like it so much, I just want to see it finished. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's always challenged this way or another. Like this pipe, for example, that was a challenge by the grains itself. Because that side is almost perfect straight grain, but I did had, I don't know how to call it, like a little elbow into it.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's not a perfect grains, but it looks so cool, so I'm trying to save it.
Yeah.
And the other side is basically pure bird's eye.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
On a volcano.
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to be pure straight grains. So there is a
I think that shape is a good example of an interesting mashup of different styles. Like this is like quintessentially you at this point, but I see a little bit of Sato going on in there, and then I see a little bit of Tokutomi going on in there, and some Danish influence all sort of rolled into one pipe. And it's and that's not to take anything away from what you're bringing to it as a pipe maker aesthetically. But it's neat seeing something uniquely yours and also quite novel that you can also sort of lay in this matrix of other pipe aesthetic movements and other styles. It's really a cool pipe.
Thank you. For me, it's immense fun. Even sanding sometimes, well, most of the time, it's boring, especially when you move from grids to grids, but the initial sanding is always fun because you see the grains for the first time in a better view. And the last sanding is fun too, because I'm sanding over the stain already, so I can see grains in the whole beauty. Mm-hmm. Well, the most beautiful process is oiling. Mm-hmm. That's the best. That's when you see,
pop, yeah,
the grains just pop up. It's just the best process ever. Well, drying process kind of boring because I'm not doing anything for the pipe for a week or so. But as I said, it's just so much fun just to make it. You know, it's. I think that's most of my driver to make pipes is just to take a block and turn it into something beautiful. You know, something I can handle, you know, and look at it. The hardest part sometimes is to part with the pipe. You know, like I spend quite a lot of time with that particular piece, and you know, I'm feeling in love with that, and then all of a sudden I got to part. So it's. But I do have my collectors, and I like them all. And when I see somebody smoking my pipe, it's like the best compliment I can get. I'm just looking at one, actually.
It's the first time you've seen that in a few years, huh?
Yeah, I think it's 2006 or 7.
It was a long time ago. You gave it to me. Let's see, if I can see the date. No, it's later. It was 14.
Oh.
Well, that's what it says on there.
I thought it's earlier than that.
That's you, right? Alex Florov.
Cool.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a Japanese bamboo somebody gave me.
I know somebody
directly from Tsugi factory.
That's a beautiful pipe.
Thank you very much. As long as you enjoy it, that's all counts.
10 years now.
Yeah, cool. See, for me, 3 important things: shape, engineering, and overall proportions.
And engineering is not a small feat when you're talking about a shape like this. Like trying to make sure that this functions well as a pipe is not a small project. Do you want to speak to the challenges in you know, it's very easy to correctly engineer the side of the inside of a billiard, but it's a rather
well, inside the Cavalier, I wouldn't say it's cheating, but there is a little bit of relief because it's drilled all the way through. Mm-hmm. So my connection point for the draft hole technically can be anywhere.
Okay.
According to the height of the pipe.
Got it. Mm-hmm.
The challenge is to actually fit the draft hole somewhere so it's not coming out.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and this particular pipe was drilled in 3 different planes, so I set it up 3 times.
Oh, wow.
On my machine to drill it all. And I use an angle plate, I use a dividing head on it, I mean, all tricks and things for the machinist. So my second background is a machinist, so I prefer heavy machining stuff. Even now I do that too. Mm-hmm. You know, I totally admire Japanese and Danish guys, how they do it, holding by hand, just, you know, against the rotating tool. In my opinion, it's a little too dangerous. And precision, that's, I'm nuts about it. You saw my machining, yeah. So all have digital readouts and
In thousandths of an inch.
yeah, 10,000 of an inch.
Excuse me, 10,000ths of an inch.
Yeah, it's fourth digit after that.
Yeah, I can't deal with that level of precision.
Well, I cannot do it. It's a display, you know. I just crank the things. Yeah, I'm just a middle guy, you know. The machine do the work.
So you only worry about thousandths of an inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, precision is very important. Because if pipe doesn't pass the cleaner, well, it's not a pipe.
Yeah.
It should pass the cleaner. It's like brushing your teeth in the morning, something like that. Another thing, the engineering of the mouthpiece in particular, I'm totally nuts about it. If I cannot do it correct, I wouldn't do it that way. Because I had a few cases when my friends come to my shop with whatever pipes they smoke, and I notice the mouthpiece is wrong in some way. So I tell them, can I make you a new one? And it's actually worked. People claim it smokes better. And I read it in an article by Reynold Barbie. He was my inspiration for precision and engineering. And man, he was a great guy. So it's not only like Danes or Japanese. The pipe smokers and pipe makers are one big family. And what I like about that business, trade, craft, art, any word will fit. We're not competing against each other like in most of the industries. We're mostly complementing each other. So I made a pipe, and some other, I would not say particular names, person made the pipe. We met at the pipe show. We admire each other work. We're not trying to, you know, oh, you make better than me, so now I make one like this. No, it's absolutely different. It's a family style. So, and same goes not only for smokers or makers, for retailers as well, for people like you. I know you for 20 years. And we're friends for 20 years, you know, and I'm totally honored because of that, you know.
Me too.
And for me, pipe shows, it's not exactly a commercial enterprise. It's meeting the friends, you know, spending time with them, you know, chatting. Because now with internet, selling is not that hard as it used to be. You just put it on the internet and, you know, people buy it. But pipe show is very important. So we can all meet in one place, you know, chat our stories, pipe stories. Not necessarily pipe stories. We all have families. We all talk about our families. I mean, it's impossible to describe. My first impression of my very first Chicago show, 2005, was it's a different planet. Not just, you know, different place on this. It's a different planet and it's totally different people. It's a bunch of aliens. Well, it's true. And seeing my friends like who joined me like in the same year, growing, you know, expanding their skills, I expand my skills, we complement each other every time we see. It's like not very common right now. So that's why I'd like to stay in that business and do whatever I like and keep it that way. So, and I knew a lot of people who think exactly the same way, and I think our effort kind of paying, you know. We're still there, we still have our family, and, you know, I didn't say anything about tobacco. I'm a pipe smoker. Well, I'm a Virginia smoker. Pure Virginia, but sometimes something else too. I like Cornell and Dale, and some other companies too. Well, I just smoke McLaren sometimes, but that's kind of off topic. And here's another thing which I actually want to mention.
Okay.
Speaking of Jörn Mickey,
Yeah.
that's my iteration of 1960s Jörn Mickey.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Very early. And you know, the fun portion of that pipe is it's less sculpted, it's more clay sculpted. So if this is like a stone, this is a clay.
Yeah.
So So the idea was to make it look like I actually make it soft, somehow sculpt it, and then make it hard. So it's and the grains actually cooperate
Yeah, that's beautiful.
quite good with that. And yeah, I can do pipes like some people say I'm a kind of an extremist, because some of my pipes really thin shanked, really fine proportions, some pipes really large and bulky. I like both worlds, small pipes and large pipes. Because I know some people do only large pipes, and it's actually fun on its own. I made a few magnums in my days, and it's just different experience. I like it. But again, people all different, and obviously they require different pipes. And I'm just trying to.
You have a lot of. You have so much skill as a craftsman. It gives you tremendous flexibility in what you can do.
It gives me flexibility, but I'm still keeping it in that style. I do make classics once in a while. There is a few reasons for that. Reason number one, sometimes I just get challenged. You know, there was one case when I made straight grain billiard entirely on sanding disc. No lace.
Just to do it.
Just to do it, yes. And it was all round. I checked by the calipers. That was fun. Another thing, when I made the straight billiard was...
also, straight billiards are not easy shapes to
it's
make.
very hard
Very hard to get it right.
Yes. That was in passing challenge by Former, because that's a famous Former quote: if you cannot make a straight billiard, you're not a pipe maker.
Yes, of course.
And some of my friends passed me that quote, and they actually bring Former to my table. And next year I came, first thing I did, I take that billiard, come to Former, and I look. And he just laughed. Yeah, he totally understood why I made it, and that was like a funny thing to do. But classic shapes, I like them. The beauty is in the simplicity, and it's really hard to make it beautiful and simple at the same time.
Yes. It has to be exactly right to make a classic shape perfectly.
Yes.
By hand.
It's,
Yeah.
but I like the challenge too. But most of the time, that's what I like. I like to expand, to utilize all my skills. Like everything I can do, I can put in one pipe. Express myself completely. Because that's my expression. I'm totally into the Japanese and Chinese design, art, style, and things. Their view of world is in images. They put soul in everything. There's like stone on the side of the road, it have its soul. There is a tree over there, it does have its soul too. So when I make a pipe, yeah, I think I do put a little bit of myself into it. And when I smoke pipes made by my friends, I actually can feel it. I call it a sentimental smoking, and I own a lot of Peter Hishon pipes. And for me, it's smoking his pipes, it's just sitting right next to him. You know, remembering Uncle Peter. And
of course.
so it's... maybe I'm just built in the wrong way, I don't know. But that's what I feel toward pipes. Pipes is not just a utility instrument. It's the first purpose of it. But as one famous pipe maker once said, it's a functional art.
Yes.
So it's a piece of art which can be actually used for something else. Less than a display. And I know some of my pipes I made a long time ago, they're not smoked yet. I see in pictures of them. Well, all of my pipes intended to be smoked. That's why I always keep engineering in perfect condition, finish obviously, and select the briar. And thanks God I do have friends like Mimo who supply me with a really good briar. And I do season them at least 5-7 years. In my opinion, it does add a little bit to the taste, but what it does the most, it makes grain stays out better.
Ah.
Because sometimes there is a flaws which you cannot see on a fresh block. Give it 5-7 years, you realize there is a sand pit there is a sand pit there. So for me it's easier to avoid it. Just to see it. Some people say the seasoning is good for taste. Maybe. That's kind of big question people still have no answer to. But for me, the answer is I can see all the flaws.
That's interesting.
I just recently realized that, a few years ago. When I started seasoning my bridle about 15 years ago when I had ability to do that. But I just realized, I remember blocks when I received them. And I take the same block like 5 years ago. Oh, that thing was not there.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I surprised myself.
But if you were to work it, you would see it in either case.
It's hard to say because sometimes it's not like traditional sandpit, which is a piece of sand or like a leaf or string of grass. Sometimes it's something different, or it's a piece of sand, but it's white in color. So you don't see it till it gets a little older and there is a black around it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So some flaws, they're not visible right away. And sometimes when a block is fresh, not all the grains visible. And that's important too. Grains I can bring back, like put water on it or something, like while I'm working. But flaws, no, that's just time.
Let me ask you another question to wrap up here. Where are you headed for the next 20 years? So you've been a pipe maker for 20 years now. What does the next 20 years look like, you think?
Well, I'm trying to keep the freehand movement moving. So I'm continue to do what I'm doing. As you mentioned, my designs get a little bit more subtle, more, what's the correct word would be? I don't know. Can I use
refined?
The word refined or noble? Not very.
Your work is
not very playful. That's what I'm saying. Like more serious.
Maybe. I don't see a lack of playfulness in your more recent work, but I do see refinement in your recent work. But that's been true for a number of years now, like a decade.
That's what I've been trying to do. Again, I mentioned Kei Goto. I'm kind of trying to switch to direction he is moving in to make less line but still beautiful as it can be possibly.
I see what you're saying. Sort of more minimalist than you're presently.
Yeah.
Okay.
A little bit more minimalism, not because I'm getting lazy, or it's actually much harder to do it this way. But I challenge myself. That's probably number one drive, and drive number two. It's kind of show maturity. Probably like I'm just trying to find the correct word for that. Because it's like evolution of the pipe smokers. Everybody start with the aromatic tobacco, full bent pipe, playing Sherlock Holmes and that type of stuff. And if they still smoking pipes 10 years later, it's a straight billiard and it's Virginia.
Yes.
It's like a step-by-step evolution. I just omitted a few steps in between. I think with the pipe making, it's a similar thing. I already mentioned the colored mouthpieces, like everybody comes through that phase, and some people stay in that phase, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just the way they like their style. And we have so many collectors and smokers. The pipe will find the admirer. For me, I'm trying to make it kind of beauty in the mystery. So you need to spend some time with the pipe, following the lines, and kind of understand the design to see what I've been thinking about it. I had really good teachers who taught me that philosophy of pipes, and, well, all of them. And it's got to be some sort of mystery. You know, like if there is a line, that line's supposed to be as long as possible, so your eye travels continuously all over the pipe, back and forth. So you see all the grains, you see all the curves, you see all the rough plateau versus the straight grains. I mean, it's in this case, it's like total opposite grains. You know, it's like 90 degrees to each other, and how it's incorporated. You know, I utilize the natural shape of the block as well. Like this bottom curve, it's not, I just decide to do that. Well, I did decide to do that. But it's also a natural curve of the block. That's why on the front, all the grains harmonically in a place.
And that only works because you adjusted the shape to the block.
Absolutely. It's not forced. It's, I just followed.
I mean, even more than that, like this whole shape, like the way you handle the bottom here also is following that whole triangular.
And that's, well, we talked about that pipe before. There is a Jorn-Mikke influence on a Tokutomi, and Tokutomi and Jorn-Mikke influence on me through all of those years. And that's basically one of my interpretations of Tokutomi discus, which comes from the Jorn-Mikke design.
And there's this enormous body of work that is always bubbling up.
Yeah, and you know, thinking of it, it's enormous amount of years of development of the particular shape.
Oh yes.
It's not one pipe maker who developed
like
the whole thing. Yeah. It started in late 50s, early 60s, and it continues up till now, and I hope it will continue years and years after me. Because it's just something which we like to play with. You know, I coming back to some of my older designs and I refine them, and it looks like absolutely different new pipe.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, and especially now we do have a lot of like different bamboo supplies. I know I have about 5-6 different species of bamboo in my disposal, and they all require a different approach to it. So it is a challenge on itself. Like a lot of bamboo is already curved, so it's drilled and curved. I didn't bend it after all, so it's a lot of different techniques as well. So it used to be just a straight bamboo, which was breeze to drill. No problem. Now everybody using the curved one, so that's a challenge. And there is always something new, there is always something different. Thanks God right now we have a wider amount of tools, which 20 years ago it was really hard to find a chamber drill. Now I own probably 30 different chamber drills for like all kind of chambers, all kind of size, shapes, for anything. And I just recently realized I've been looking at old Tokutomi bamboo doublings, and he have like absolute pointed chamber there.
Oh yeah, they were, but I think that in some respects might have been a limitation of tooling. I don't know, but they're very
Well,
sharp.
that was a limitation of shape. You cannot use anything else except the straight point.
Because
because of the outside shape of the pipe, yeah.
Yes, but you could raise the bowl up a bit and give yourself a little bit more space if you needed to.
Well, doubling is always a challenging thing, actually, because of the thin bottom.
Yeah, that's true.
But I was looking recently at
but they were very
2004 and
extreme.
5. They were extreme, absolutely, yeah. And you know, my memory didn't serve me well, probably because I totally forgot about those. And I just recently looked at them. And yeah, I remember I hold those pipes in my hands. I put my finger inside, and actually I know it's straight taper. Now I place an order for a few new tools. So I have 30. It's going to be more than 30. And you know, it's to have more tools for me. It's I can make more stuff. So it's I can broaden my mind. And, well, I'm fine with that.
Alex, thank you so much for coming today and joining us in the studio to talk about your pipes. This has been so much fun. And check out Alex's pipes on Smoking Pipes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be honored.